2010, you said, American television sold the war every single day. It rewarded and honored the people that were fighting it, but disregarded the people who were opposing. You already mentioned this. It's not just the government or the president. It's an institutional arrangement, including our media system. Do you believe we have to challenge and confront the media system? You also said that if you could infiltrate into the media, you could have a big impact. My question is, do you think one can change the way the media system operates? What can we do to challenge it? After all, it's either state monopoly or powerful companies who are in bed with the state who own the media in general. Again, what can we do to challenge it? Is there any change at the end of the tunnel?
Good question. Again, very good question. You know, I think it's a process. I worked on the inside, and I had a lot of battles, okay? And I was doing stories that were, you know, you might think were like superficial stories. I was doing like, you ever hear of Tina Turner, the singer? Okay, I did the first story about Tina Turner's comeback. And one of the things I discovered is she was a Buddhist, and that she said certain Buddhist prayers. So here she is, this sexual goddess type, who's also a Buddhist. And she's also somebody who was an abused woman. She'd been beaten by her husband. Just the other day, yesterday, what is it? Newspaper?
Zaman.
There's a big report about women being brutalized in Turkey. 1 out of 4 women are abused by their husbands or abused. You know, it's really pretty bad, okay? And she was abused. So the story was about Tina Turner, but I broadened it out so that it would also be about these issues of abuse. And so it had a social content. I did the first story on hip-hop. And I showed that hip-hop was like the poetry of the streets. It was the expression of people who were outside the music system and who were making a powerful criticism or critique of society. And that it was a valid form, an art form. And that the piece actually helped hip-hop, which was a black thing, become a white thing too. Okay?
Thank you.
Oh, I mentioned hip-hop. I could be in trouble. Okay. You know, or I did a story about Bruce Springsteen. Bruce Springsteen was involved in supporting workers, you know, and their strikes, and supporting homeless people, and supporting food kitchens for poor people. Now, most of the stories about Bruce Springsteen was about, you know, his record is #1, blah, 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 you know. It was like about him as a celebrity. But I was treating him as a citizen, what he was actually doing in society. And I thought that was a better story. So it depends what angle you bring to a story. Being on the inside, I was able to shape the story and get it out to millions of people. So in that sense, I was successful. On the other hand, I got totally frustrated working there because I found that a lot of people were completely uninterested in what was going on in the world and uninterested in really telling the truth. So I left and I became an independent journalist, and I set up my own company. And one of the first issues we dealt with was South Africa. We found that the struggle in South Africa for freedom was not being reported on in America, that it was being censored because the media companies didn't want to upset the South African government because they wanted to be there. If Nelson Mandela gets out of jail, they can cover it. So they were pulling their punches. So we created a television show called South Africa Now to compete with them, to challenge them. And that little show created a big impact because Oprah Winfrey, you know, supported it, and other people supported it. And we were able to get the news out. So when Nelson Mandela was free, I ended up making 6 films with him as an American, which was a big honor. Okay? So, you know, it depends on your mentality, your sense of what's important and what you're willing to stand up for and fight for. We created something called MediaChannel.org. Unfortunately, we're not online right now. To use the internet, we said that the media, as the media watches the world, we watch the media. And we began to report on what was not being reported and challenge the media system. So that's something that we did, and we had a lot of students come and help us as interns, learning by doing. That's one way, at least in America, students can learn about journalism is they can get internship and work in places. And your teacher was an intern when she worked in Boston. I'm still going to hear the story, but it's a way of learning. So the point is that you never really achieve everything you want to achieve because you're in a world where big money like Rupert Murdoch is running media, but Rupert Murdoch, they got involved in this phone hacking, in England, and they lost billions of dollars as a result. So even the big guys can't take a fall. Just like in Turkey, the military took over, and now the military is not back in the barracks, pretty much. They're not controlling everything anymore. So history happens, things change, and you can help make it change if you get involved. Working for an NGO, working for some media outlet that is willing to report on these issues. So my message to you guys is look for opportunities to do stuff, participate on social media, share information with others. I was a high school editor. I learned certain basic skills. Now I'm doing what I'm doing, which I think is often exciting. Forgive me, did you close the window or something?
Yeah, I did. I'll open it.
Something happened with the air in here. Okay, next. Was that good? Any questions? Okay, guilty as charged.
On September 12, 2011, in a global research, he said that many of these were the ideas and issues that a more democratic media would highlight. If we lived in Europe, these events would have been covered. But here in the USA, it was media business as usual, reflecting the view of the powerful, sympathizing with the victims, but never debating how things might be different. Events like these were considered a sideshow unworthy of attention. Do you still believe that there is a difference like that between the media of Europe and the USA? And in your opinion, which country has the most freedom of expression?
Yes, there are differences. There are differences among American publications. There are tabloid newspapers. There's sensationalism. There's newspapers that are, just dealing with entertainment issues. Pretty girls, fashion, sports, etc., and so forth are what they focus on. So there are distinctions everywhere. I went to the London School of Economics, so I lived in London for a few years, and as a result, I learned about, European media. There were 7 newspapers published in London. Some of them right-wing, some of them left-wing, some of them no-wing. And as a result, you could see, I taught media at a high school in Brixton in England, which is a immigrant, poor neighborhood, And one of the things we did is we took a big march against the war in Vietnam, which took place in England, that I was part of. And we just looked at how many people came to this march. Every newspaper had a different number. Every newspaper reported it in a different way. So what really happened? You really don't know, because there was a lot of spin, bias in the news, including, I was there, so I could give you my experience, but other people maybe had a different experience. So my point is, you have to learn to read between the lines. You have to learn to say, what do you find in the media that you admire, if anything? And what would you recommend to others? What would you like, if you want to be in the media, what would you like, what kind of media do you want to be in? Do you want to be a news anchor covering, fashion shows? Do you want to be in news covering politics? You have to sort of decide what you think is the most important, and you have to try to prepare yourself to get into that kind of media so that you're perceived as somebody who has credibility, as somebody who's knowledgeable. And, you know, that's a constant revising, it's a constantly changing situation. And, you know, I would encourage you to pursue it. My experience is, you know, a lot of the European media, not so great necessarily, but there is some much better coverage on certain subjects there than I find in the United States. That's why I try to read internationally. If I'm going to report on South Africa, let me go to a South African newspaper and see what they're saying at least. If I'm going to report on Turkey, I want to read what the Turkish newspapers are saying, although there's probably only two that write in English, so I don't know Turkish, I can't really read it, but, you know, people tell me about it. So I'm trying to learn that way too, okay?
And lastly, what was the biggest criticism to the media which you had to defend your opinion was?
If you're in a media company and you take a slightly different view, you're going to have to really work hard to legitimize the fact that you can even take that view. Okay? So, for example, we took the view that the African National Congress, Nelson Mandela's organization, was really the representative of most of the people of South Africa. Well, other people said, no, it's not. It's a terrorist organization. Nelson Mandela is in jail for terrorism. He admitted it. How can you say this is legitimate? So this is point of argument, point of contention. So, you know, you have to be prepared to defend your position, understand what somebody else is saying. One of the difficult issues to debate for me, let's say, as a Jewish American, is Israel. Because there are many people who would say, if you're critical of Israel, you're a self-hating Jew. You don't, you know, support your own people, quote unquote. Now, this is not true. There are actually a majority of American Jews are critical of Israel, okay? But you wouldn't know that from reading the newspapers. You would think all are unified, supporting this right-wing government in Israel. So, in that issue, there's a lot of debating points. And a lot of times politicians use what are called message points. They frame a subject so that their point of view will seem totally reasonable. We are only defending, you know, our right to exist. We believe, or in Turkey, we are only censoring or filtering the internet because we want to protect the Turkish people and children in Turkey from being exposed to bad ideas and pornography. What's wrong with that? And then you have to say, well, that may be what you want to do, but in fact, you've censored 3,700 websites, including ones that I like. And if you want to protect children, fine, but you don't protect them from me. Don't let me have access as an adult. So there's a lot of debating points about all these issues. And you have to be aware of these controversies. Does that answer your question a little bit? Did I completely turn you off? Okay.
Two more.
How's this going, Teach?
It's going very well, thank you. We're on time.
Hello, my name is Duran. I'll be asking 2 questions about economics. Actually, you just gave a small answer to my first question, but I still want to learn more about your ideas. So my question was, what do you think about the future of Turkey's economy?
Okay, what?
Turkey's economy.
What do I think about the future of Turkey's economy? First of all, I don't really know that much about Turkey's economy, other than what I've read, but it looks like the Turkish economy is very strong and is doing very well because Turkey is trading with the rest of the world. It's reaching out to the Arab world, trading in the Arab world, it's trading with China. It has a much more international view, and it's attracting a lot of investment. There's a lot of companies here, American companies here, and others, who are, want to increase their participation in Turkey. They're making money in Turkey, whereas in America they're losing money. So, I think one of the reasons the government is supported and the Prime Minister got almost 50% of the vote is because people feel like the economy is going well. Now, are there poor people in Turkey? Are there people who are not working? Are there people who are living miserable lives? I would probably say yes. Do I know any of them personally? No. Okay? But I'm sure that there are gaps in the economy. And like in the American economy, there's growing inequality, which means we now have not just rich and poor, but poor and super rich. A massive gap. And the middle class shrinking instead of expanding. Here in Turkey, it seems to be expanding, which is good. I mean, yesterday Adam took me to this island on this ship, and when you look across, the Bosphorus here, and you look into the sea, that whole development along the side there is gigantic. When I was here in 1998, it wasn't there. All of these gigantic construction projects and buildings and everything else. I'm sure there are problems with some of this, building standards. When there was an earthquake in Turkey, it turned out that the buildings weren't well constructed. So I don't know about regulation and all of these things, whether or not consumers are being protected against abuses. I assume that there are problems there. But I'm impressed by what I've seen. It's pretty amazing, don't you think? To see all this growth and whole neighborhoods that weren't even here, giant buildings. Now, it also is true that the people who are at the top of those giant buildings are making a lot more money than the people at the bottom, okay? And so there are these inequalities in gaps. But I can't comment on it more than that. I'd like to know more.
My second question is, do you think it is fair that companies such as Standard and Poor's decide on the credit grades of countries and influence their economies by either encouraging and discouraging the investors to invest in these countries?
Absolutely not. I think these ratings companies, it's a form of financial terrorism. It's using, labeling, these are the very companies that rated these fraudulent mortgages. They said these were AAA investments, and they all collapsed. Okay? In other words, I don't trust them at all. And I don't know why anybody else does. And I think that they have created tremendous harm in Greece and in other places, which are, it's frightening. Suddenly, and they downgraded the United States also. I mean, they think they're more powerful than, and they're being investigated in the United States because there's a lot of conflicts of interest in these countries. So I agree with you. That needs a real investigation, more of an investigation. In my film Plunder, I have a former vice president of Standard & Poor's who's critiquing the economy, saying that it's a predatory economy in America, which means that basically it's taking advantage of people. Thank you for your question. Final. Save the meanest for last.
My name is Anara, and my question is simple. Which side do you enjoy more? Would you recommend us to get involved in film production or news reporting?
I think you can do both, and I try to do both. I mean, in other words, I like reporting, I like learning about things I don't know, I like finding out about stuff. And I've been very fortunate to be able to travel to 60 countries, to meet incredible people, to learn from them. But I always try to write in a way that's more analytical, more critical, not just like, so-and-so got up this morning and brushed their teeth. You know what I mean? I'm trying to offer a perspective on something. And, to me that's satisfying. On the other hand, making films is fun, or it can be fun. But it's very, very difficult to make a living doing it, okay? It's because when you make films, you think about, well, how much does it cost to make a film? But what you don't think about is more than half the money that goes into a film goes into marketing, promoting, selling the film. My daughter works at Warner Brothers in Hollywood. She's a big executive there now, okay? As I go down, she goes up, okay? And, you know, she tells me about how much money is spent in marketing, okay? Like, she was involved with Harry Potter. Now, I was in South Africa this summer. There was a woman there whose daughter was in London visiting her ex-husband, and the daughter, like, was going to die unless she went to the Harry Potter premiere. She had to go to it. And there was no way. It was sold out. It had been sold out for almost a year. Luckily, her mother met me. Luckily, I have a daughter in Hollywood. Luckily, my daughter in Hollywood was able to get this girl a ticket to the premiere. And it was like she had gone to heaven. Okay? She had all the outfits, the Harry Potter dress, you know, and everything. But in London, Warner Brothers had rented Trafalgar Square, the center of London, and did a whole promotion there. You know, an hour television show about Harry Potter, promoting it. They spent a fortune on it. But then the movie came out and made $1 billion. So, you know, that's what it takes. So I'm saying making a film can be a lot of fun, but it's also very difficult. When I was working on this movie, Plunder, about the financial crisis, first of all, a lot of people didn't have any money to invest or put into it. But it was harder and harder to raise money at all for this film. And it's hard to sell a film and get it out when you're up against the Harry Potters of the world. You know, who are you? And so it's very frustrating being independent from it. If you're working for a television company, they're paying you, they're paying. But if you have to go out and raise the money, make the film, and sell the film, it's a challenge, let's put it that way. And right now, I am a very frustrated filmmaker because I'm on a topic that's very relevant, it's very timely, but I don't have the marketing budget to get it out, and that's why I need help. So I need to have this class become a marketing unit and help me use social media to promote it because I can't afford to buy advertising. You see what I'm saying? In other words, there are ways in which viral, publicity ends up promoting things. But it's tough to do, and it's an uphill battle. And that's the battle I'm fighting right now. You know, on the other hand, I really enjoy doing things like this, coming to meet you guys and see this beautiful school and have a chance to have a discussion with you. And I hope the discussion is interesting. I was very impressed with all the questions and all the intelligence and thought that went into it. And, you know, hopefully this will be memorable to you in some way. You know, in 5 years you'll say, you know, I was in school when there was this American that came, he said some outrageous things, and, you know, but I remember it because, you know, he didn't know his shirt wasn't buttoned properly or something, okay? Because of his bouffant hairdo. And that's how we learn. That's how things happen. Unexpected things are the things that teach us about stuff. We learn by doing. We learn by being there and seeing ourselves, what's going on. And I think if you take that approach towards learning, more interactive approach, just like media can be interactive on Facebook, etc., you will learn more. So I want to give you guys my email, okay? If any of you have other questions or want to write to me, you can. Dissector mediachannel.org. ORG is the not-for-profit designation on the internet. So it's by Schechter at mediachannel.org. If you are interested in any of the ideas I'm raising, if you want to get involved somehow, if you want to learn more, feel free to write to me and I'll try to respond. I get a lot of email from people and Facebook and Twitter and the rest of it, but I find this is a very good way of connecting. Like today I left New York. I admit I had gone to Iran because I was a judge in a film festival, which was really fascinating. Okay? And I met this Iranian guy. And he said, gee, I would really like to come to New York. I've never come to America. I want to do a film there. Can I come work with you? And I said, yes. And it took about 8 months for him to get the visa, to come, and he could only come, it turned out, to 10 days. And of course, what days was he coming? The very days I was going to Turkey, which we had no idea about, in advance. But in other words, stuff happens. You meet people. So I met a guy in Iran who's from Africa, and he invited me to his film festival on the island of Zanzibar off the coast of East Africa. I went there this summer. It was fabulous because I got to see all these African films that I never would have seen. And there were filmmakers there from all over the world. So film festivals are good things to know about and go to. There is this Biennale here in Istanbul, which is a global art exhibit of all kinds of different art at the Modern here. I went to it last night, and there were some very interesting things in there. Some of it was incomprehensible to me. I didn't understand what it was about. A bunch of cardboard boxes on top of cardboard boxes, inside cardboard boxes, and it was called cardboard.
Yeah.
That's art, But there were other things there that were really interesting. And I'm just saying that, it's exploring things, investigating things, you find out about it. And that teaches you, it gets you interested in learning more about whatever it is that you're interested in. So I would just encourage that. And I hope you found this class of interest and value. I thank you again for having me here. I thank the teacher.
Thank you.
And I thank you for your questions. How's that? Now I'm supposed to get.
Thank you.